You know those stories that make you stop scrolling, the ones where someone's whole life flips on a dime and suddenly everything you thought you knew is upside down? This is one of those stories. Imagine cleaning offices for years, empty conference rooms and cubicles with you alone in the glow of fluorescent lights, sweeping someone else's trash and polishing floors while you're stacking dreams that no one else sees, until the moment everyone does. That's the story of Maria Delgado. A hard-working, fiercely determined woman who spent nearly a decade cleaning corporate offices in Chicago for top firms, often overlooked, never mentioned, invisible. Yet one day something extraordinary happens. She's promoted. Not to a supervisor, not to office management. She becomes the CEO of one of the very companies she cleaned. And today we're telling how that happened, from janitor to boss, and why her story matters to anyone who's ever been underestimated. Maria Delgado started out in a modest suburb of Chicago. Born to first-generation Mexican immigrants, her parents worked double shifts. Your dad on construction, your mom scrubbing floors in hospitals. They taught Maria early that dignity comes from work, not titles. She watched them labor so she could have options, because in their country they had none. When Maria was 19, she took her first cleaning job at Archer & Fields, a mid-sized marketing agency downtown. She was quiet, diligent, always early, always finished early. Polished floors, sanitized kitchens, emptied bins every morning. She never asked for praise. She didn't need to. Her sense of pride was private. 4 years she kept that rhythm, juggling community college at night, cleaning offices all day, slipping syllabi between mop handles and stack of paper towels. But she wanted more. Quietly, she learned the agency's business. She watched how marketing proposals were built. She read annual reports during lunch when nobody was looking. She noticed how clients responded to certain pitches and how the office dynamics worked. She couldn't afford an internship, but she had the office's pulse memorized. At 25, the cleaning company she worked for offered her a promotion to team leader, but Maria declined. She wanted to remain close to the client, to observe, to learn, and to prove her value organically. So she stayed as a staff cleaner at Archer & Fields, but she began speaking up quietly, suggesting waste reduction ideas, better inventory of office supplies, even small energy-saving tricks. Someone in procurement noticed. They tried her suggestions. They worked. Suddenly the agency's office supply costs dropped. One day the agency's CFO, a graying man named Paul Simmons, cornered her in the mailroom. "You've got good ideas, Maria? Ever thought about working more directly for us?" Maria smiled but said nothing. She knew the world didn't pivot overnight. She waited for the offer that never came. Instead she got more work but no title. The years rolled on. She cleaned late nights after board meetings and early mornings before staff arrivals. The agency expanded, new clients, bigger offices. Still nothing for Maria. Staffers who arrived later got promotion tracks. They climbed corporate ladders while she stayed in the shadows. Others patronized her, saying she should be grateful for a job. But on the inside she was building knowledge and professionalism, and a rock-solid work ethic sharpened by every scrub and sweep. At 32, the agency's longtime operations director retired. The company split responsibilities among an external ops consultant and a series of impersonal hires. Mistakes followed, deliveries missed, cleaning contracts mismanaged, inventory chaos. Office morale dropped. Costs rose. Client satisfaction fell. The leadership panicked. They decided to hire someone with institutional memory. Paul Simmons, now CFO but still aware, whispered to the CEO, "You know who really knows this office?" Maria's name came up but was dismissed. It was too unusual. Still, Simmons quietly approached her and offered her a coordinator role, front office position, steady salary. Maria accepted. Her first day at the front desk, some staffers whispered, "She's the cleaning lady, now she's reception? What next?" But Maria didn't flinch. She quietly learned scheduling systems, vendor contracts, staffing projections, energy budgets, client billing. She wrote reports. She streamlined cleaning schedules. She renegotiated janitorial contracts, saving tens of thousands. Clients noticed the difference. The new operations consultant resigned abruptly. Maria stepped into the role full-time. Over the next 2 years she transformed operations. She cut waste, improved vendor performance, raised client satisfaction, reduced costs. She also began bridging trust. Staff felt heard because she'd once walked in their shoes. She communicated with empathy, for hours of meeting clients, but she also wiped down offices at night when no one else was there. Word got out. Now mid-level staffers, assistants, even executives, would ask Maria for advice. They respected her. Then at 38 the shock came. Archer and Field's leadership announced new board appointments and a restructuring. They invited Maria to a meeting room, a boardroom she'd cleaned more times than she could count. The CEO and senior partners were there. Maria walked in. They offered her the role of Chief Operating Officer. Not Cleaning Coordinator, COO. They said they wanted someone with institutional knowledge, integrity, and heart. The room was still. She accepted. Immediately she drove change. She digitalized facility management, implemented sustainability programs, increased staff diversity, launched a scholarship fund for children of hourly workers. Clients praised the transformation. She represented the firm at industry panels, conferences, local press. They called her the janitor who cleaned up the biz. She smiled, but inside she breathed relief. She'd always known she belonged. But this is just chapter 1. Because after her ascension, something remarkable began to happen. Former colleagues who'd looked down on her now sought mentorship. The community she represented surged with pride. And then came the moment no one expected. The board announced their next step. They wanted to elevate the company into new markets. They needed a CEO who could drive innovation while preserving the firm's roots. And one day Maria Delgado gets called again. Back in that same boardroom. This time with one final offer. But they also said something about outside investors. They were worried about her background. They questioned whether a former cleaner could command the confidence of big-ticket clients and top talent. Some board members privately pushed for a more polished leadership profile. They wanted someone with the right pedigree. That's when the drama began. Maria had to decide, should she accept a chance at CEO? Or walk away from the agency she'd rebuilt with her integrity and sweat, just to preserve her dignity? Meanwhile, whispers started. A competitor firm thought she was vulnerable. They reached out offering big money, promises of title, but no real authority. And investors started calling. Can a former cleaner really drive a multimillion-dollar firm? Maria realized accepting the role would mean lifting not only the company, but carrying the skepticism of every person who'd ever underestimated her. And just when she's about to make her decision, the board chair says quietly in the hallway, "We'll give you 1 hour. 1 hour to commit. 1 hour to decide if she's ready to become their new boss, and accept the scrutiny from press, from clients, from company insiders." The clock starts ticking. Maria leans against the wall, heart hammering. She thinks about the years she scrubbed, the friendships built, the systems saved. She thinks about the world that refuses to see what's possible in people who clean floors. She thinks about walking away, but then she remembers who she is, how far she's come. And then she hears her name. The board chair calls her back in. The door opens. She steps through. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift Black voices and expose hidden truths. The boardroom door swung open slowly, quietly, like the space itself was holding its breath, and Maria Delgado walked back in, not as a cleaner, not as a coordinator, not even as the COO she'd already proven herself to be, but as a woman standing at the edge of history, face to face with everything she had earned and every doubt they still had. The air inside was colder now, not because of the temperature, but because of what hung between her and the board, the question of whether her past made her unfit for the future. Paul Simmons, the CFO who once defended her ideas when she was just a line item in the cleaning contract, sat forward slightly, eyes steady but cautious. Beside him, board chair Elaine Rausch, a legacy executive with decades in consulting, tapped a silver pen against a manila folder. "Maria," she said, "we want your answer." And in that moment, Maria didn't flinch. She didn't stall. She didn't even blink. She simply said, "Yes. I accept." The room didn't cheer. It didn't erupt. There was no applause. Just a long, weighty silence that made her feel like she'd stepped into both power and crosshairs at the same time. A few of the older partners exchanged looks. One of them, Robert Alston, cleared his throat. "We'll notify legal and prepare a contract package. Interim title will start immediately pending shareholder vote." Maria nodded once. Understood. But she felt it. Behind the professionalism, behind the clean suits and practiced handshakes, there was something else. Doubt. Resistance. Not from everyone. But enough. She'd stepped into a room full of people who couldn't reconcile her resume with her reality. A janitor turned CEO was poetic for press but threatening for power. Still, she smiled, shook hands and walked out with her head high. And the second she was alone in the elevator, she let out a long breath. It had happened. She was now the CEO of Archer & Fields, a multimillion-dollar marketing agency in downtown Chicago. But there was no time to celebrate. Because what came next would test her in ways the climb never did. That same evening, her name leaked to a local industry blog. The headline read, "Custodian to CEO? Archer & Fields bets big on unconventional leader." The comments came in fast. Inspirational. PR stunt. She'll last a quarter tops. Hope she knows marketing better than mops. The next morning her inbox was flooded. Some congratulatory. Some filled with backhanded compliments. And one anonymous email with no text, just a.jpg attachment. It was a photo of her old cleaning badge. Captioned, "Don't forget your roots." She stared at it, deleted it, and got back to work. Over the next week, Maria rolled out a listening tour, meeting every department face to face. She didn't sit behind a glass desk issuing directives. She walked into the bullpen, took off her jacket and asked questions. Real ones. How do we keep clients longer? Where are we wasting resources? What do you wish leadership actually did? People responded. With honesty. With energy. They felt seen. For the first time in a long time, the agency buzzed with momentum. But not everyone liked the change. One senior VP, Harrison Polk, who had quietly expected the top job himself, began organizing informal alignment meetings, exclusive lunches with department heads where Maria was not invited. He called it legacy continuity, but Maria saw what it was, a shadow network. An internal resistance. She didn't confront it right away. Instead, she moved with patience. She studied the numbers, the teams, the clients, and found an unsettling pattern. Despite growth in accounts, the agency had plateaued in net revenue. Projects were being over-delivered with little return. Budgets weren't being tracked well. And guess who had approved most of those projects? Harrison. Quietly, inefficiently, and with enough institutional cover to avoid scrutiny, until now. Maria scheduled a leadership retreat. Mandatory. No excuses. She presented the data line by line, showing where they'd bled money and how under her new leadership, every contract, every campaign, would be tied to performance accountability. Most execs nodded. Some even applauded. But Harrison sat stone-faced. Later that evening, a reporter called her directly. "Ms. Delgado, we're hearing rumors of internal leadership friction. Anything you'd like to comment on?" Maria's stomach dropped. She hadn't spoken to any press yet. Not officially. "No comment," she said. "But tell me, who gave you my number?" The line went silent. Then the reporter said, "Let's just say someone very senior doesn't think you'll last the fiscal year." She hung up. That night, her office was quiet. She stayed late, walking the halls, remembering what it felt like to clean these same rooms in silence. Back then, people ignored her. Now they feared her. But power, she realized, didn't protect you from sabotage. It made you a target for it. And the sabotage was coming. 1 week later, a major client, the agency's oldest financial account, unexpectedly sent a termination notice. Maria called their executive contact. Off record, the man said, "We heard some concerning things about your leadership. That you lack experience. That you're unstable." She asked who told him that. He hesitated. "It was someone from your board." That night, Maria confronted Elaine Rausch directly. "You promised support. Why is the board leaking stories about me to clients?" Elaine's face didn't flinch. "I can't control every conversation. But you can control your people," Maria said coldly. Elaine leaned in. "Let me be honest. Some members think the CEO's seat was a gesture. Symbolic. They didn't expect you to actually act like one." Maria walked out of that meeting with a new realization. Surviving as CEO wouldn't be about ideas or strategy, it would be about war. Political, reputational, psychological. Every move had to be perfect. So she called Paul Simmons. "Pull every board voting record from the past 5 years. I want to know who backed me and who didn't." He didn't ask why. That weekend, Maria attended the National Leadership in Marketing Summit. She gave a keynote on inclusive strategy. Her speech went viral, over 3 million views. Clients reached out. New contracts followed. The agency's brand soared. And just when momentum seemed unstoppable, the attack came. Sunday evening, an anonymous email was sent to the entire agency. Subject line: "Your CEO has something to hide." Attached was a PDF labeled, "Janitor_confidential." Inside, doctored financial documents. Fake screenshots of Maria allegedly diverting company funds to a private account. The file was laced with enough technical language to seem real. The impact was immediate. HR was flooded. PR scrambled. Staff morale dipped. And someone, somewhere, had engineered it perfectly. The board called an emergency meeting. Maria demanded an internal audit. Bite for bite, they proved the documents were forged. But the damage was already done. The agency's largest new client paused their rollout. And then came the worst blow yet. Her personal bank account was flagged. Someone had tried to frame her for fraud, outside of work. Police showed up at her home with questions. No charges. But enough to rattle her family. Her parents were terrified. Her brother called, angry and scared. Maria sat alone that night, watching the city lights flicker through her window. She knew who she was. She knew what she hadn't done. But she also knew, someone wanted her gone. And they were willing to destroy everything to make it happen. She pulled up her screen. A burner email account popped up, one she hadn't seen before. There was only one message. "We warned you. Step down, or next time we won't leave evidence that clears you." She clicked to trace the IP. It pinged back, to the agency's internal network. And suddenly she realized, it wasn't just someone on the board. It was someone on her team. Someone close. Someone smiling in meetings. Someone who knew exactly how to frame her. And now she had one mission: find out who. Before they take her down for good. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift Black voices and expose hidden truths. Maria Delgado stared at the ping result. Internal IP. An email account she'd never set up. A threat so close it felt like betrayal in slow motion. She shut her laptop with a controlled breath and exhaled. The next move had to be surgical. Internal audit, digital trace, human reconnaissance. She called Paul Simmons to launch a full internal investigation. No exceptions, but she needed eyes she could trust. Someone outside the agency who understood corporate tech politics. So she reached out to Luis Vega, a cybersecurity investigator she'd met at the summit. Luis agreed on one condition: Maria handle this cautiously. Board elections and staff morale were delicate. She agreed. Over the next 48 hours, Luis' team set up covert monitoring across the agency network. They traced the malicious email signature, a VPN redirect through executives' remote workstation. The digital breadcrumbs pointed, and Maria's chest tightened. It wasn't Elaine Rausch, the chair, at least not directly. It was a senior operations lead who'd had access to both finance and board communication portals. Someone who could upload forged files, route clandestine emails, and leverage shadow systems. It was Harrison Polk, the same VP who'd organized alignment lunches, undermined budgets, and resisted accountability. Luis confirmed metadata matching his logins during odd hours. Unambiguous. Maria felt cold. Still, she needed incontrovertible proof. So she scheduled a one-on-one with Harrison under the guise of strategic alignment. He agreed, over sushi at a high-end hotel, away from prying eyes. When Maria arrived, Harrison looked as polished as ever, navy blazer, crisp shirt, calm charm. They exchanged pleasantries and she steered the conversation. "I wanted to discuss long-term strategy, board alignment, client growth." He smiled reflectively. "All good news, Miss CEO." She leaned in quietly. "We've had some internal discord. And since we're restructuring how we handle C-suite transition, I'd like your input. I respect your tenure." Harrison's face softened, but his eyes held tension. She let him speak. He talked expansively about legacy, continuity, client retention. Then Maria pivoted. "Of course, I've heard concerns about sudden leadership shifts, disruption. I want to clear air boxes proactively. Can you help pull any whispers that might be circulating, especially around finance or external messaging?" His expression closed. He sipped sake and said slowly, "Rumors happen. But we're aligned." She smiled and ended the meeting as if it were cordial. But her investigator Louise had already planted a trace inside Harrison's phone. Innocuous meeting minutes synced to a monitored folder. A few hours later, Louise flagged 2 new files uploaded from his desktop. Emails with forged attachments, financial PDFs matching the Janitor Gate forgeries. Meanwhile, tensions inside the office turned electric. HR began receiving anonymous tips about Harrison's stock trades the week before the internal audit. Board members confused him for resistance leader and whistleblower, publicly. The air smelled like chaos. Maria called an all-hands meeting in the auditorium. The room buzzed with speculation. She stood on stage. Calm. Collected. Unflinching. We have uncovered a betrayal within our core team. Someone attempted to sabotage not only my reputation, but this firm's integrity. Gasp. Each face registered shock. She continued, we're launching a full disclosure. I trusted many of you implicitly, and one person abused that trust. She shared the digital proof, metadata, logs, timestamps, and Harrison's compromised VPN signature. Harrison's face drained. He dropped his phone. A murmur rippled across the room. HR escorted him out. Hours later, lawyers served him with termination notice and non-compete enforcement. The board summoned an emergency session. More votes of confidence for Maria came through. Momentum swerved back in her favor. Client contracts suspended? Reinstated. New contracts? Flying in. Stock began to climb. Maria seized the momentum. She launched a transparent governance initiative, open to staff feedback and board input. She reshuffled senior roles, promoted overlooked talent, baked in new diversity leadership. She positioned this as transformational, not reactive. But the victory was tempered. The agency's press still framed it as her crisis management. Analysts asked, can this new CEO lead beyond cleaning scandal optics? Maria pushed forward. Then, just as the storm seemed to calm, something unprecedented happened. At midnight, an encrypted folder dropped into her secure email. Inside, high-resolution photos, taken stealthily, of her cleaning uniform from a decade earlier, still hanging in an archival storage room. And a single PDF, remember who cleans while you lead. No further explanation. Nothing. Louise traced the upload IP, again internal. It bounced through Harrison's now disabled credentials. But access logs showed lingering guest account sessions mapped to a generic janitorial user profile, long deleted but still in backup. Someone rebuilt it. The silent threat was clear. Her past could always be weaponized, even now. Maria realized cleaning wasn't the only thing they remembered. They thought they still owned her narrative. She forwarded the photos and note to her board chair Elaine. Her reply was calm. This is unacceptable. We'll copy security and legal. But Maria knew better than reliance. Her story taught her power came from within. Then came a bigger revelation, her family. Anonymous texts arrived that night to her mother's phone. Screenshots of Maria's early immigration documents, birth certificates, temp work permits, filed digitally. The message, you're not just CEO. Your legacy we can undo. The emotional undercurrent hit her like a blow. They weren't trying just to oust her, they were threatening her community. Maria shut off her phone. She sat in silence. Then she opened her laptop and locked it. She had a decision. Keep climbing in a world that equated cleanliness with inferiority, or walk away before they broke her. But this much was clear, the fight wasn't over. And it wasn't just about professional survival, it was personal. She pressed send on an email to Luis. I want to expose them fully. All of it. And to the board, authorize us to conduct internal audits company-wide. Locate any archive data tied to my past, and control the narrative. She looked at the city skyline from her office. Chicago's amber lights flickered. Below her were the office floors she once cleaned, the spaces she now directed. Her reflection in the glass was no longer the invisible woman sweeping floors, but the leader shaping strategy, safeguarding integrity, carrying legacy. But she knew one thing. Exposing the mastermind behind these threats would trigger backlash, with legal suits, reputation traps, maybe worse. Someone among them was not just a saboteur, but still in the shadows. And they had resources. So now she prepared. Crisis communications, legal briefings, family relocation, protective orders. They all became part of the launch plan for Part 4, the full public reckoning. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift Black voices and expose hidden truths. There's a certain silence that settles just before a storm detonates, an eerie stillness where every phone buzz, every elevator chime, every shuffled footstep feels like a warning. That's the silence Maria Delgado sat in the morning after the threats turned personal. Her mother, shaken but resolute, had called and simply said, "Mija, whatever this is, they're scared of what you represent. That means you're already winning." Maria had nodded, but her hands trembled under the desk. She wasn't scared of losing the job anymore. She was scared of losing the truth. Because someone in her own building wasn't done. And now they were digging into the undocumented chapters of her life. Her family's immigration status, her father's accident back in 2002, even the community mutual aid funds she'd sent money to anonymously years ago. Whoever they weren't just trying to discredit her. They wanted to make her feel like she never deserved to lead in the first place. And that was unforgivable. By mid-morning, Luis Vega's forensics team confirmed it. The ghost janitorial account that had been used to drop threats had been accessed again, this time to pull archived HR files. It was subtle. Someone was using legacy access from an old facility's computer still tied into the network, located in the sub-basement of Archer and Field's original office wing. Maria ordered the building's maintenance logs pulled. One entry stood out. Special HVAC access granted, weekend maintenance, approved by Executive VP, non-specific. But the code used for that override? It belonged to Elaine Rausch. Maria's stomach turned. The board chair. The one who offered support. The one who claimed to be neutral in leadership transition. Could she have been behind the threats? Or was she being framed? Luis advised Maria to tread carefully. If you go after her publicly without evidence, they'll spin you as paranoid, unstable, a CEO unraveling. You'll lose your seat. Your legacy. Maria didn't blink. Then I guess I need to go deeper. She asked Luis to infiltrate backup server logs from the pre-acquisition days, before Archer and Fields went digital. Luis raised an eyebrow. You think this goes back before your promotion? I think this goes back before they ever imagined someone like me running this place, she said. As Luis and his team searched digital skeletons, Maria played a parallel game above ground. She met with key clients, doubled down on transparency, and launched a staff equity initiative that gave employees partial ownership in long-term profit shares. The press flipped again, calling her a reformer, a next-gen CEO with soul. But behind the scenes the trap was tightening. That week, Archer and Fields was scheduled to present at a national leadership forum. Maria was the headline keynote topic. The future of leadership is already here. But the night before she received an anonymous envelope hand-delivered to her apartment building. Inside, a printed photo of her younger brother, outside his college campus. And one line scribbled in red marker, "Speak tomorrow and he disappears." Maria stared at it for a full minute before breathing. This wasn't just sabotage. It was coercion. Her family was officially in the crosshairs. She called her brother immediately. He was fine, unaware. She instructed him to stay with friends out of state. Then she called her mother. Then Luis. The threats were escalating, but no physical evidence pointed to a specific person. Then Luis called back at 2:13 a.m. "You need to hear this," he said. In the old archives, hidden in a mislabeled project file folder from 8 years ago, he'd found recorded video snippets from internal security cameras never uploaded to the cloud. One of them, grainy but clear, showed a much younger Maria cleaning a boardroom late one night, while a heated meeting played out inside. The topic? A forced layoff of lower-level staff to preserve exec bonuses. Maria had been present, not as a participant but as the cleaner nobody noticed. But the kicker? She'd been recorded on that footage shaking her head and muttering, "They'll never get away with this forever." The video had been marked for deletion, but never deleted. And now it was being used. Luis said, "I think this is what they're trying to bury. Not that you were a cleaner, but that you were a witness." It all clicked. Maria wasn't just a PR threat. She was a living, breathing liability, because she'd seen everything they'd done when they thought no one was watching. And now that she was in power, they feared she might dig it all up. And they were right. She would. Maria decided not only to speak at the forum, but to tell the truth. On stage. In public. Full exposure. Not just about herself, but about the corporate rot that had tried to silence her. She prepared her speech. Coded language. Poised delivery. She memorized every word. The next morning, Maria took the stage in New York. Cameras flashed. Executives watched from rows of upholstered chairs. Her face appeared on digital billboards around the venue. She began, "Leadership isn't inherited. It's earned. And sometimes it's feared, because it holds a mirror to those who never expect it to be seen." Applause. She spoke about legacy, class, corporate hypocrisy. The crowd leaned in. But just as she reached the crescendo, just as she was about to reveal the cover-up, the sabotage, the threats, her mic cut. The screen behind her glitched. A voice crackled over the loudspeakers. Robotic. Cool. "Your story ends here, Maria?" The room gasped. Technicians scrambled. Her presentation disappeared from every screen. Security stepped in. She stood frozen. The stage lights dimmed. And then, every attendee's phone buzzed at once. A mass text. Unknown sender. Attached was a document, flagged confidential. A full fake dossier alleging Maria had been part of a cash laundering operation through her janitorial contracting agency before joining Archer and Fields. Complete with doctored bank transfers, fake signed statements, and an IRS fraud warning stamp. The crowd murmured. Whispers turned to panic. Cameras kept rolling. Anne Maria, center stage, stood beneath a screen now covered in lies, broadcast to the world. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift Black voices and expose hidden truths. The room fell into chaos. Security guards sprinted toward the control booth as the lights flickered violently, and a wave of gasps rippled through the crowd. Conference staff scrambled to shut down the screens. On the main display, broadcast across thousands of live stream feeds, was Maria Delgado's face juxtaposed beside a fabricated dossier, stamped, IRS investigation, active. Phones flashed. Social media exploded. And in the center of it all, Maria stood frozen, alone under the burning white lights. But she didn't run. She didn't flinch. She looked out across the packed auditorium and said 3 words, calm, precise, unwavering. "This is false." A hush fell. "I repeat," she said as the tech team finally restored her mic, "this is false. A digital fabrication designed to stop what I'm about to reveal." She turned to the audience, scanned the first 3 rows, executives, thought leaders, media. "Whoever sent that," she said, voice now amplified across every corner of the venue, "wants you to remember me as who I was, not who I am, and definitely not what I represent. Proof that truth rises through concrete." A wave of nervous clapping started at the back. Then more. Soon half the room was on its feet. Camera still rolled. Maria stepped forward and spoke, not from a script this time, but from the place where truth lives when everything else has been taken. She told them about how she used to clean offices for the very people who now asked for her insight. She told them about the silence she observed in boardrooms, about the broken systems designed to keep people like her, immigrants, first-generation working class, forever invisible. And then she dropped the real bombshell, the cover-up. She recounted what she and Luis had uncovered: unethical executive decisions made behind closed doors, manipulations of financial records to protect bonuses while dozens of lower-tier staff were quietly fired. She showed proof, real proof. Receipts. Emails. Time-stamped footage from the deleted archives. And then she said it, "They didn't just try to erase me, they tried to erase my humanity. But I don't work in the dark anymore. I stand in full light." The crowd erupted. Journalists surged forward. A standing ovation rolled through the arena like thunder. But the war wasn't over yet. Back at Archer and Fields, the boardroom sat silent. That same morning, Luis sent Maria a final report. One last breadcrumb traced from the ghost account responsible for the false financial dossier. It hadn't come from Elaine Rausch. Not directly. It had come from a shell company. One tied to none other than Robert Alston, the veteran partner and board member who'd been quiet through the whole ordeal, until now. Maria requested an emergency board meeting. When the time came, she entered that same glass-walled room where years ago, she'd once knelt to clean coffee stains from a table no one had bothered to wipe down. This time she was in a crisp navy blazer, flanked by 2 legal advisors and the firm's compliance officer. She walked in like she owned it because now she did. "We've traced the malicious campaign to a shell company owned by board member Robert Alston," she announced calmly. coordinated with external cybersecurity fraudsters. There is evidence of embezzlement, data sabotage, and employee endangerment. The board gasped. Alston rose to object, but Maria was faster. She clicked a button. A screen lit up with a recorded Zoom call, Alston speaking with a third-party PR agent, referencing disrupting the optics of Delgado's leadership, and leaving enough digital residue to destroy her professionally. Elaine, who'd remained skeptical but neutral throughout, stared at the screen in disbelief. "This is treason," Maria said quietly. And they agreed. By vote, Alston was removed. Legal proceedings initiated. He would later face charges of corporate sabotage, wire fraud, and conspiracy. Maria cleaned house, not out of revenge but out of duty. She restructured Archer and Fields from the inside out. New transparency policies. New board diversity standards. Whistleblower protections. Her story lit up headlines around the world, not as a scandal but as a revolution. 1 year later, she was featured on the cover of Forbes under the headline, "The CEO Who Cleaned the Industry." But Maria never let it go to her head. She still rode the train. Still visited her old community center. Still called her mother every Friday night and brought tamales when she could. At the next all-hands meeting, she stood on the stage, looked out at a staff that now looked like the world she came from and said, "I didn't get here in spite of where I started. I got here because of it." They cheered. And she smiled. Because she knew, after everything, they could never erase her now. Never let someone else's perception of your worth define your potential. The world may try to trap you in the role it finds most comfortable. But when you know who you are and you stay true to your integrity, no lie, sabotage, or prejudice can bury the truth forever. Whether you're cleaning floors or leading boardrooms, dignity, perseverance, and honesty will always shine through. Maria Delgado didn't just become the boss. She became the blueprint. The end. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift Black voices and expose hidden truths.